Tell him to clear out. I need the Meridian suite. My production team arrives at 7 tomorrow morning, and I can't shoot in a standard room. Sky Danton's voice was controlled and pleasant, the way people sound when they've never had to ask for something twice. She was standing at the front desk of the Aldwell Chicago in a long camel coat, phone already in hand, thumb scrolling without looking at it, as though the matter had already been decided, and she was simply waiting for the paperwork. Derek Raines, the hotel's front desk manager, glanced at his screen, then at Sky, then back at the screen. What he should have done in that moment was straightforward. The Meridian suite had been booked and paid in full by one Ray Dorsey, confirmed 6 weeks prior, no cancellation flag. The room Sky Danton had reserved was a deluxe king on the 14th floor. Those were facts. They were on the screen. What Derek did instead was reach for his phone and dial an internal extension. What would later be described as the most careful, deliberate mistake of Derek Raines' professional life had just been made. Ray Dorsey had arrived at the Aldwell that afternoon with his 9-year-old daughter Lottie and very little else, a rolling duffel bag, a backpack with her art supplies stuffed into every pocket, a paper bag from the deli on Michigan Avenue where they'd stopped because Lottie insisted the grilled cheese there was, in her words, scientifically the best in Chicago. He was wearing dark work pants, a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled to the elbow, and boots that were clean but showed their age. He'd come straight from a project walkthrough on the south side, a community center rebuild he'd been overseeing for 14 months and hadn't had time to go home and change. He looked like a man who spent most of his days outdoors, which he did. The lobby of the Aldwell was the kind of place that made your footsteps sound important. Marble floors, brass fixtures, flower arrangements taller than Lottie. She walked through the entrance with wide eyes and said nothing for several seconds, which was unusual. Mom would have loved this, she said finally. Ray set a hand on her shoulder. Yeah, she would have. Her name had been Diane. She had died 3 years ago, 2 weeks before Christmas, from the kind of cancer that moved fast and gave no real warning. She had been 34 years old. She had kept a running list in a notes app on her phone. Restaurants she wanted to try, places she wanted to take Lottie, trips they kept saying they'd plan when things calmed down. The Aldwell Chicago had been near the top of that list. She'd seen the Meridian suite in a travel magazine and folded down the page corner. Ray had found the magazine in a box of her things the year after she passed. He'd unfolded that corner and sat with it for a long time. He'd booked the Meridian suite 6 weeks ago. He had not told Lottie exactly why they were going. He only said they were doing something special. At the front desk, a junior concierge named Keiko Narita checked them in with the kind of genuine warmth that felt nothing like hospitality training. She confirmed the reservation, handed Ray the key cards, and told Lottie about the art museum 2 blocks away that had an interactive gallery for kids. Lottie immediately asked if they could go. Ray said they'd see after getting settled. The Meridian suite was on the 22nd floor, floor-to-soiling windows looking north toward the lake. A sitting room with a reading chair by the window that Lottie claimed immediately. A bathroom with a soaking tub that Diane would have used within 20 minutes of arrival. Ray stood at the window for a moment while Lottie arranged her colored pencils on the coffee table. "This is the nicest room I've ever been in," Lottie announced. "Mine too," Ray said, though it wasn't true. They ordered room service. Lottie worked on the piece she was presenting the next morning at the Young Artist Showcase. A watercolor cityscape she'd been building in layers for 2 months, blue and gray and amber. Ray read through project files on his laptop, occasionally glancing over at her, at the way she chewed her lower lip when she was concentrating. They were there for 4 peaceful hours before the knock came. Derek Raines was a polished man. 11 years in luxury hospitality, he chose his words the way a careful person chooses shoes, with attention to how they'd land. When Ray opened the suite door, Derek offered an apology first, which he'd learned neutralized most conversations before they began. There had been, Derek explained, an administrative error. A guest with a long-standing relationship with the Aldwell had a booking request that overlapped with Ray's reservation. The hotel was prepared to accommodate Ray in a premium suite on the 16th floor, comparable square footage, partial lake view, along with a complimentary breakfast for 2 and a credit toward future stays. Ray listened to all of this without interrupting. "What's the error?" he asked when Derek finished. Derek hesitated. The suite was flagged for a priority upgrade request. By whom? Derek said he wasn't at liberty to share the specific guest's name, but confirmed the matter had been reviewed at a management level. "I booked this room 6 weeks ago," Ray said. "It was confirmed. I have the confirmation number." "That's correct, and we take full responsibility for any confusion." It's not confusion. Ray's voice didn't rise. I paid for this room. My daughter is inside it. What is the operational reason for moving us? Derek said something about property relationships and long-term hospitality commitments. He said it the way people say things when they know the words don't actually mean anything. Lottie appeared at Ray's elbow. She had a colored pencil behind her ear and paint on two of her fingers. She looked at the man in the suit and then up at her father. "Is something wrong?" she asked. Ray told her to go back and finish what she was working on. She didn't move. Derek mentioned that the hotel was prepared to personally escort them to the reassigned suite and ensure a smooth transition. He used the word transition. He did not use the word eviction, though it was more accurate. "I want to see the written policy that permits a paid confirmed reservation to be reassigned without consent," Ray said. Derek said he'd need to consult with his supervisor on the specific documentation. "Then we'll wait here while you do," Ray said and stepped back to close the door. Derek stopped the door with his hand. There was a pause. The hallway was very quiet. Derek said the hotel strongly recommended cooperating with the request and that failure to do so might result in an escalation that would be uncomfortable for everyone involved, including Ray's daughter. Ray looked at him for a moment. He did not look angry. He looked the way people look when they've already calculated where a conversation is going and are simply waiting for it to arrive. "You just threatened to make this uncomfortable for my 9-year-old daughter," Ray said quietly. "I want you to know that I heard that." Derek pulled his hand back. His expression shifted, not into regret, but into the colder register of a man who has decided to stop pretending he's being friendly. He said the hotel would provide 30 minutes for the transfer of personal items. Behind Ray, Lottie had gone still. She was standing near the coffee table with her watercolor spread across it, and she was watching her father with her colored pencils in both hands and an expression he recognized, the one where she was trying to understand something that wasn't making sense. She didn't say anything, but she was watching everything. They moved. Ray packed their things without rushing. He folded Lottie's art supplies carefully into her backpack. He rolled the duffel. He took one last look at the reading chair by the window, the one Lottie had claimed, and picked up the bags. Lottie carried her watercolor flat between both hands so it wouldn't bend. The 16th floor room was fine. It was what Derek had described, clean, with a view that technically included a portion of the lake if you stood at a specific angle near the left edge of the window. A fruit basket had been placed on the table with a small card that read compliments of the Aldwell. Lottie looked at it and said nothing. She set her watercolor on the desk and sat on the edge of the bed. "Dad." "Yeah." "Why didn't you just tell them?" Ray set the duffel on the floor and sat in the chair across from her. "Tell them what?" She made a small sound, not quite a word. "Who you are," they would have stopped. He looked at her for a long moment before answering. "If they'd treated us right only because of who I am," he said, "then they never really treated us right. They were just protecting themselves." Lottie turned that over. Her fingers were still resting on the edge of her watercolor. "They made it seem like we did something wrong," she said quietly. "Like we didn't belong up there." "I know." "Did it bother you?" "Yeah," Ray said. "It bothered me a lot, but not for the reason you'd think." He paused. "What bothered me is that the next family they do it to won't have any reason for it to stop, and they probably won't know they even have the right to push back." Lottie looked at the fruit basket, then back at her watercolor, then at the wall. "That feels like the same kind of wrong as what they did to us," she said. Ray was quiet for a second. "Yeah," he said. "It kind of is." He did not go down to the lobby immediately. He waited until Lottie had her headphones on and was working again. Then he stood at the window and ran through what he remembered. The confirmation number, Derek's exact phrasing about priority requests and property relationships, the way the man had covered his tablet screen when Ray leaned in to see the reservation field. He took out his phone and made one call. Short. He spoke quietly and gave a name and a suite number and said he wanted the access log for the Meridian suite reservation pulled and preserved immediately, and that nothing in the property management system should be modified until he said otherwise. The person on the other end said yes, sir, and that was all. Ray put the phone back in his pocket. Bernard Osei had not planned to be at the Aldwell Chicago that evening. He was in the city for a board meeting and had extended his stay one night to walk through 2 of the recently acquired properties before the formal transition team arrived. He liked to see things firsthand without the choreography that came with official visits. He was crossing the lobby toward the elevator bank when he stopped. The man near the concierge desk, flannel shirt, work boots, holding a room key in one hand and a folded piece of paper in the other. Bernard had seen him twice, once at the closing table 7 weeks ago, once at a late strategy session where the man had sat at the end of the table with a yellow legal pad and asked the kind of questions that made the lawyers look at each other. Bernard slowed. The man's daughter was beside him, 9, maybe 10, carrying a backpack and a flat piece of paper she was handling with both hands as like it mattered. Bernard changed direction. "Mr. Dorsey," he said. Ray turned. Bernard glanced around the lobby, reflex. He was trying to understand what the principal buyer of the Aldwell Group was doing standing in the lobby of one of its own properties in work clothes, holding what appeared to be a printout of a room reservation. "What happened?" Bernard asked. Derek Raines was summoned to the lobby 17 minutes later. By the time he arrived, the assistant general manager had also been called down, along with the head of guest relations. Bernard stood with Ray and Lottie near the far end of the lobby, away from the main desk, speaking quietly with 2 members of his operations team. Derek recognized Bernard by reputation. He felt the specific cold that comes from understanding too late that you have made an enormous mistake. He attempted to explain. He used the word priority 4 more times. He said the decision had been made in the best interest of the property. He said no formal harm had been done because comparable accommodations had been offered. Ray let him finish. "What was the best interest of my daughter?" he asked. Derek did not answer. Ray asked whether the Meridian Suite reassignment had been documented as voluntary or whether consent had been recorded in any form. Derek said it had been handled verbally. Ray asked who had authorized the move. Derek said he had under guest relations discretion policy. Ray asked him to explain what part of that policy permitted removing a confirmed paid guest in favor of someone whose booking was for an entirely different room. Derek's jaw moved without producing anything useful. Bernard turned to one of his operations team and said quietly, "Get Keiko Narita." Keiko had worked at the Aldwell for 14 months and had spent much of that time watching things happen that she lacked the authority to question. She had a habit of documenting. The reservation system had crashed badly twice in the past year, and she had learned to keep her own backups, screenshots, timestamps, whatever she could save quietly without drawing attention. She came to the lobby with her phone in hand. She showed Bernard and Ray the screenshot she'd taken of the Meridian Suite reservation that afternoon. Ray Dorsey confirmed, fully paid 6 weeks in advance. She then showed a second screenshot taken after the reassignment. The suite was now listed under a different name. Ray's booking had been reclassified as a voluntary transfer, credit applied. Ray had signed nothing. Keiko said she had something else. She pulled up an internal staff messaging thread. Over the past 4 months, whenever a social media figure with a significant following had requested a room upgrade, Derek had flagged it internally as a property marketing opportunity and arranged the transfer, bumping the original guest without written documentation. 7 incidents in 4 months. 5 had involved families. In 2 cases, the original guests had been given credits and told their original room was unavailable due to maintenance. There were no maintenance records for those rooms on either occasion. Bernard looked at Derek for a long time without speaking. Derek said the channel had been informal. He said it had been an initiative to increase the property's digital visibility. He said the guests involved had accepted the new arrangements without filing complaints. "Mr. Dorsey complained," Ray said. "You told him it would be uncomfortable for his daughter if he didn't cooperate." The assistant general manager looked at Derek. That was apparently new information. Sky Danton was in the Meridian Suite when security knocked. She had already arranged her ring lights near the north-facing window. Her production assistant was unboxing a camera body on the coffee table. The security officer informed her that there had been an error with her room assignment and that the suite was not available for her stay. Sky said that Derek Raines had personally arranged the transfer and that she had a verbal confirmation. The security officer said he was sorry and that she would be escorted to her original booking on the 14th floor. She came down to the lobby still in her coat. She stopped when she saw the group gathered near the far concierge station. Ray in his flannel, Lottie beside him, Bernard and the operations team, the assistant general manager. Derek standing apart from everyone, looking at the floor. She looked at Ray. She had not looked at him carefully before. She had spoken to Derek and assumed the matter handled. Now she was looking at the man whose reservation she had taken, in his worn boots and work shirt, standing in the lobby of a 5-star hotel while significant management attention directed itself entirely in his direction. She said something about the booking being a mutual arrangement between herself and the hotel. Ray said it was not mutual if only one party had agreed to it. She pointed out that she had 8 million followers across 3 platforms and that the content she produced at the Aldwell would result in measurable bookings for the property. Ray said that a business arrangement requiring a 9-year-old girl to be removed from a room her father had paid for was not an arrangement the property should honor under any circumstances. She looked at him for a long moment, then she looked at Bernard. Bernard told her that her premium guest status was under review and that she was welcome to contact the guest relations office in writing to discuss her concerns. She left without responding. Her production assistant followed with the camera bag. Bernard asked Ray what he wanted. Ray said he wanted the access logs preserved, a formal review of every guest transfer in the past 6 months that lacked written consent documentation. Complaints that had been quietly closed, reopened, and assigned to someone who did not report to the person who had approved the transfers. He said he was not interested in making an example of anyone for its own sake. He wanted the system examined because the families it was failing were not the ones withstanding to push back on their own. Bernard began issuing instructions. Derek surrendered his access card and was escorted from the property pending a full compliance review. The assistant general manager assumed operations for the evening. Bernard turned to Kiko and asked whether she'd be willing to walk the review team through her documentation. She said yes immediately, and added that she had been keeping the records for a while, because she had hoped someone would eventually ask. The Meridian Suite was returned to Ray and Lottie's name before 9 o'clock. Ray went up to the 16th floor to collect their things for the second time that evening. Lottie was still at the desk with her watercolor, headphones on, working. He touched her shoulder and she pulled one side off. "We're going back up," he said. She looked at him. "To the other room?" "Yeah." She started gathering her supplies, then she stopped. "Dad, I saw the other woman leaving when we were downstairs, the one who wanted our room." "Yeah." "Did they make her move?" "Yes." Lottie was quiet a moment, zipping her pencil case. "Is it bad that I kind of feel sorry for her?" Ray picked up the duffel. "No, that's not bad." But she was wrong. She was, Ray agreed. Both things can be true at the same time. She thought about that while she packed the last of her supplies. In the elevator going up, she held the watercolor flat between both hands the way she always did. "Are you going to tell everyone? Who you are, I mean, eventually?" "Eventually," Ray said. "That's how these things go. But not tonight. Tonight you finish your piece and we order something hot." He looked down at the painting, the city she'd been building for 2 months, layer by layer. "How's it looking?" "Almost done," she said. "I keep changing the lights." The elevator opened on 22. Before going inside, Ray made one more stop at the front desk. He'd been told on the way up that a family was in the lobby, a man and his 2 young kids waiting on a room. The original booking had been in the wife's name. She was a nurse, still finishing a late shift, and the front desk hadn't yet sorted out how to check them in without her card present. Ray went downstairs and sorted it out. He also handed the Meridian Suite key to the assistant general manager and asked him to give it to that family when they arrived. The assistant general manager looked at him. "Mr. Dorsey, the suite is a room," Ray said. "A good one. Give it to them." He and Lottie ended up in a room on the 18th floor, standard king. The view was mostly the building across the street. Lottie looked at the wall and then at Ray. "This one doesn't have the chair," she said. "No," he agreed. She pulled the desk chair to the window anyway, even though there wasn't much to see, and kept working on the skyline she'd been building in watercolor all evening. Around 11, she put her pencils away and climbed into bed. Ray sat at the desk with the light low. "Dad," Lottie said from the bed, almost asleep. "Yeah. We did something right tonight, didn't we?" He looked at her. Her eyes were almost closed. "Yeah," he said. "I think so." She didn't say anything else. He turned back to the window. Somewhere on the 22nd floor, a family was settling into a room for the first time. In the lobby, the records were waiting for the compliance team. Derek Raines's access card was in a box at the security desk, and Keiko Narita had finally been asked the question she'd been sitting with for months. Ray closed his laptop, turned off the lamp, and sat in the dark for a while with the faint glow of the city coming through the glass. Whatever came next, the formal announcements, the review process, the board briefings, would come when it was time. He had learned, slowly and at some cost, not to rush the things that needed to unfold at their own pace. What mattered most in any room was the kind of person you were when no one had recognized you yet.